What's up, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Quick Bricks NBA DFS podcast, brought to you by the good guys over at Fantasy Degens. As always, hope you guys enjoyed your break. Sean Mitchell here at SMitchell17. It was a nice little break. Took some days off. Got crushed in NHL. Yeah, definitely ready for some NBA to come back. Anyway, we get a nice little 6-game slate here to kick back off the second half of the season. Had a lot of success in the first season, so let's hope that it kind of translates over and we kind of carry it over and keep smashing. So let's go ahead and get it kicked off with the games, the spreads, totals, which we have all the spreads, all the totals. Good news there. We'll talk about the pace a little bit, and then we'll hop right into the positionals and talk about those guys as well. So kick it off. Bucks at the Pistons. Milwaukee minus 13.5 here. 222.5 on the total. You get a good big spread, and you really don't get a really high total. It's not really encouraging. The only thing here that we can look forward to is Milwaukee being the number one fastest team in the NBA over the last 10 games. Detroit, dead last, 30th. So it's a major pace-up spot for Detroit. It's going to be really hard for them to hang around in this game. It makes me wonder, Derrick Rose returning from his injury after a 5-game absence in the last game before the break. I know that he's had, a week off here, so that's good news for him. Hopefully he hops right in. Obviously they just got rid of Reggie Jackson. So that's going to be really interesting to see if, I'm sure Bruce Brown's going to play tons of minutes. Brandon Knight might get some run. Nonetheless, Derrick Rose should be the guy. We'll have to see about this one. Again, it's Milwaukee. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league, and they also run with the fastest pace. Really makes you wonder, if Giannis will actually play a full allotment of minutes as well. Nonetheless, kind of get into that one here in a little bit. We'll go with game number 2 with the Miami Heat going into Atlanta to play the Hawks. Miami coming in as a 6.5 road favorite here, 230 on the total. Miami, 27th fastest team over their last 10 games. Atlanta is the 4th. So, massive pace-up spot here for Miami going into Atlanta. Atlanta loves running with pace. They're one of the fastest teams in the league. Have been in the top 5 for pretty much the whole season now. So, massive pace-up spot here. Atlanta's got most of their guys back. They're pretty healthy except for Clint Capella, who continues to be out for, probably a couple more games. Miami, has gotten their guys back. They've added Jay Crowder. So that's going to be real. Andrew Iguodala, they added him as well. So that one's really interesting. We'll talk about that one a little bit further. I mean, it's not really a big spread. 6.5 on the road here for Miami. It's not really that big of a spread. So pretty interesting game. It's really nice high total, one of the highest on the board. Actually tied for the highest on the board with the late night hammer. So that's definitely a game we're going to be looking at. Hornets at the Bulls, game number 3, Chicago minus 5.5 here at home, 211.5 on the total. This could be one of the games that you just literally want to scratch off. You just want to exit out, don't even touch it. There's only just a couple plays that I would consider. Charlotte, 29th fastest team over their last 10 games. They've been slow all year. Chicago, 17th, kind of middle of the pack. They had fallen kind of towards the back there for a little while. Played a couple games against Milwaukee. And that beefed up their numbers as far as pace goes. But they're really not a fast team. They're more the latter part. So, excuse me, keep that in mind. Game number 4, we have the Nets going into the 76ers, going into Philly to take on the 76ers. Philadelphia minus 8.5 here at home. 217.5 on the total. Brooklyn, 20th fastest team over their last 10. Philadelphia is the 11th. So, Philadelphia is sitting right outside that top 10 over their last 10 games. Have been running a little bit faster. I think they're wanting to push the pace a little bit more. It's a decently nice pace-up spot here for Brooklyn. Small pace-up, but it is. The total's a little bit lower. This could be a little bit more of a defensive game. But nonetheless, it's some good spots on both sides. Last 2 games on the board. We have the Grizzlies going into the Sacramento Kings, going into Sacramento to take on the Kings, I should have said. Memphis minus 1.5, 228 on the total in this game. Memphis 6th fastest over the last 10. The Kings are 21st. The Kings had been running with really nice pace there before the break. Memphis has been fast all year long. It is in Sacramento where the Kings have actually played a little bit slower. So keep that in mind. Nonetheless, the point spread here is really close. Given the road favorite here, minus 1.5 for Memphis, and then your total of 228. It's third highest on the board. I think this game is definitely one that you can definitely look at. And then finally, you have your late night hammer with the Rockets going into Golden State, taking on the Warriors. Houston minus 11 on the road here, 231 on the total. Highest game total on the board, and for good reason. Houston running with the 7th fastest pace over their last 10. They've been a very fast team all year long. Golden State running with the 8th fastest over their last 10. So Wiggins, coming from Minnesota, was a pace up spot there for them already. Minnesota runs with a lot of pace, so that was nothing new for Wiggins. Draymond has sped up a little bit. They're starting to run faster. It's good looks for them. So that game's obviously one we're going to want to look at as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop right into the positionals. A lot of good stuff here. A lot of good stuff. It was kind of hard to kind of look exactly at what they've done over their last 5 to 10 games, considering they've had a week off. But it is what it is. These guys are still going to continue to play the way they have been playing. They might have a little rust. Of course, everybody's probably been sitting on a beach or laying on a couch for a couple of days. I'm sure they've been practicing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're lazy, but these guys are probably going to come up a little rusty, a little slow at first, but we'll see. First game's back after a break. Shake the rust off. Start at the point guard spot. Trae Young, 10.5. I thought it was very interesting that he has a 37.3% usage rate over his last 5 games at home, but at home he's averaging 31.5 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 9.5 assists in his home games. Now, his last 2 games versus Miami this season, found this very interesting. 13 points. Now, this is average. Okay, don't get me wrong. This is an average over the last 2 games that he has played Miami. 13 points, 3 rebounds, 5.5 assists. He has not played well versus Miami. So, you want to keep that in mind. It's not very encouraging. I'm not saying that Trae's a bad play. I'm just saying that 10.5K, the numbers that he has put up versus Miami this season so far have not been good. Russell Westbrook is going to be the guy that I'm going to be looking to play, obviously. Golden State allowing the number 2 most fantasy points to the point guard spot on the season so far. 2 games versus Golden State this year. 24 points, 10 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1 steal per game. So, his last 3 straight have gone for 55 or more fantasy points. So, Russell Westbrook is definitely going to be my top one, obviously, in that late night hammer. Highest total on the board, going to be really good pace, and it's just a great spot for Westbrook here. It has really good numbers versus Golden State this year. Ben Simmons, who I really like at 9.5K, a little bit cheaper. Brooklyn, allowing the 5th most of that point guard spot on the season so far. 3 games versus Brooklyn this season. He's had a 21.8% usage rate. He's played 37.4 minutes per game, 24.7 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 8.7 assists, 2.1 steals. Put up 84 fantasy points versus Brooklyn the last time they played. 48 or more fantasy points in his last 4 before the break. Ben Simmons was playing really well. He has had a lot of success against Brooklyn. Gets them here at home. I really, really like Ben Simmons. He could be my favorite play on the slate. Devontae Graham at 7.5. I told you I really didn't like this game. Wanted to cross it off. There's literally 2 or 3 plays that I like in this game. It's Devontae Graham and it's Zach LaVine. That's the only 2 ways I feel like you can go. Devontae Graham's been playing pretty well before the break. 46, 47, and 51 fantasy points over his last 3. 23.7% usage rate over his last 5. So far in 2 games versus Chicago this season, he has a 23.3% usage rate. He's played 34.4 minutes per game, 19 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game, 8.3 assists per game, and 1.5 steals. So pretty good numbers against Chicago so far. That's why I said that he would probably be one that I'd look at. He's only 7.5K. The total is very low on this one. It's not a game that we're in love with, but nonetheless, you can cherry pick a few of the players. You can do a few one-offs. Devontae Graham is one of the one-offs I think you can go with. 39 or more fantasy points in his last 3 on the road. So good numbers on the road. He's had good numbers versus Chicago so far this season, so don't mind him at 7.5K. De'Aaron Fox at 7.4. Another one that I like quite a bit at the price. De'Aaron Fox has been really good at home this season. He's had a 29.2% usage rate over his last 5 at home. And not to mention, in 2 games versus Memphis so far this season, he has played 29.8 minutes per game. That's very low. He has had a 28.2% usage rate in those 2 games, average. And he is averaging 24.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 4 steals. He has 8 total steals in 2 games versus Memphis. And then a block per game as well. So really good defensive stats. Probably a lot better play on FanDuel. Don't know his price over there. Nonetheless, I think he's definitely a good play on both sides, especially at 7.4 on DK. De'Aaron Fox will be in play. Again, it's a nice total at 228, third highest on the board. Totally fine with some De'Aaron Fox here. Spencer Dinwiddie at 7.3. He's been fair. Over 42 fantasy points in his last 3 on the road. Kyrie Irving continues to be out. Him and Karis LeVert continue to carry the load. It's going to have to be on his shoulders. He's only 7.3. excuse me. 3 games versus Philadelphia so far this season. 30.4% usage rate. 33.8 minutes per game, 24 points per game, 2.5 rebounds per game, and 7.0 assists. 7 assists and a half a steal. So Dinwiddie has played pretty decent, averaging 24 points against Philadelphia is pretty good. So if you want to go Dinwiddie at 7.3, I'm totally fine. Draymond Green at 6.5. He is point guard listed on DraftKings, so I went ahead and put him in here. It is Houston. We know that they are not exactly a good defensive team. And they are allowing the number 1 most fantasy points to that point guard spot over the last 10 games. So, Draymond is going to continue to probably play point guard for them. He's been playing well. 33 or more in his last 2 at home. Gets a nice little pace spot, of course. In 1 game versus Houston this season so far, he put up 20 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists and a block in 34 minutes. So Draymond obviously is in play here. If you're going to stack that game, you obviously have to have him, but obviously I think he's a good play. Could potentially just be a one-off. I mean, I like Andrew Wiggins as well, but Draymond at 6.5K in this pace-up spot, highest total on the board. I think he might go a little bit underlooked. Again, I talked about Derrick Rose. He's 5.9. He only played 7 minutes before the break. Was not very encouraging. Although he has to have a lot of rest, they do not have Reggie Jackson. And they are a huge dog here against Milwaukee at home. So keep all of that in mind if you feel like playing Rose. The guy that I might look at is Bruce Brown, right below him at 5.2. 33 or more minutes in his last 6 of 7. 22 or more fantasy points in his last 6 of 7. 6 or more rebounds in his last 3 of 4. At least 9 or more actual points in his last 3 of 5. 5 or more assists in his last 3 of 5 as well. 7 steals and 4 total blocks in his last 5 games as well. So good defensive numbers, good numbers all around. He kind of fills the sheet. And obviously, without Reggie Jackson, Bruce Brown ought to get some usage. There is going to be a nice little usage bump for Brown here. He should play all game. It doesn't matter if they're down 50 points to Milwaukee. He's going to play all game. They don't have a whole lot of depth. Jordan Bone is literally their only other point guard. Bruce Brown is pretty much a lock button for me, especially in cash. I just feel like he's going to play all game. It is a nice big pace-up spot for them as well. So Bruce Brown, 5.2, probably one of my favorite plays as far as the value goes at his price. Kobe White at 4.7. Again, I said I really wasn't just a whole heck of a lot, comfortable playing a lot in that game, but this is a nice, decent little value play if you want to go there, especially in GPPs, not cash. Kobe White, 4.7. 3 games versus Charlotte this season so far. He's played 27.3 minutes per game, 16 points per game, 2.7 rebounds, 4.3 assists, and a steal per game. 20.3% usage rate over his last 5 games, 25 or more minutes in his last 5 straight. Chris Dunn looks like he's going to be out for a good while. Satoransky has been playing decently, but Kobe has been playing a lot of good minutes off the bench. So keep that one in mind. I'm going to go ahead and roll over to the shooting guard spot. James Harden at 11.3. Golden State allowing the 4th most to that shooting guard spot over their last 10. He's put up 66 or more in his last 2. The late night hammer, obviously, if you're going to play that game, you have to play Harden. I mean, you don't have to, but he's cheap. It's a really good spot. It's a nice, fast-paced game. Don't mind it. Zach LaVine, as I mentioned, at 9.2, one of the only other big names that I would play in this game. Charlotte allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to that shooting guard spot over the last 10. They've been giving it up quite a bit. In 3 games versus Charlotte this season, he's carried a 32.5% usage rate, 33.3 minutes per game. He has scored 25.7 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, 1.2 steals, and he has put up 52 and 64 fantasy points in his last two. So Zach LaVine at 9.2 I think is totally fine. Don't love the spot. I love the spot. I don't love the game total. I don't love the pace. But the spot is there. I mean, it's really good. DVP is there. If you want to play LaVine, I'm totally fine with it. I wouldn't say that he is a great pivot off of Harden because he's not, but he is cheaper. Jimmy Butler at 7.9, 3 games versus Atlanta so far this season. 24% usage rate, 36 minutes per game, 15.3 points per game, 10.7 rebounds per game, 7.7 assists, 3 steals per game. He has 9 total steals in 3 games versus Atlanta, and a block. So 3 blocks in 3 games. 27.4% usage rate over his last 5. He leads the team. Jimmy Butler 7.9 versus Atlanta. You know it's cheap. Andrew Wiggins at 7.6, back-to-back 34-minute games here for the Warriors. Again, this is just a part of that game stack, but also just kind of like Wiggins here at 7.6. He's really cheap. He's playing good minutes. He's put up 44, 27, and 52 fantasy points in his last 3 games. 23.8% usage rate in those 3 since joining Golden State. And, of course, Houston allowing the 8th most of that shooting guard spot over their last 10. So Andrew Wiggins, decent play. Damian Lee on the other flip side. Not on the flip side, but on the same team, I should have said. 27 or more fantasy points in his last 2. 32 and 30 minutes in his last 2. 6 total steals over those 2 games. 10-plus field goal attempts in his last 5 or 6. So Damian Lee's been kind of getting the run again. He's been kind of in the grunt of it. So he's a decent look, I think, at 5.2 in that game. Obviously, a nice high-paced, fast-paced game. Duncan Robinson against Atlanta at 4.9. Atlanta versus shooting guards has been a thing. 28 or more fantasy points in his last 3 or 4. 17 or more actual in 5 of his last 6. 3-plus assists in his last 6 of 8. Doesn't do just a whole lot other than a few assists and points. He's a 3-point shooter, but on DraftKings, that's what you want. You get the little extra half point for the 3-point shot. So D-Rob at 4.9 against Atlanta, I'm totally fine with. Josh Richardson at 4.2. Something that I tweeted out about yesterday. Played 32 minutes in the second game that he returned from injury, which would have been the last game before the break. 32 minutes, 33.8 fantasy points, 21 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 blocks. Went 8 of 15 from the field. So, Josh Richardson at 4.2. Don't think you're going to find a better value there. Small forward, Chris Middleton at 8.3, over 40 fantasy points in his last 5 of 7. 32 or more minutes in his last 9, 23.9% usage rate in his last 10. In one game versus Detroit, he only played 25 minutes in this game. Need I remind you, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1 steal. That game was with Giannis. Karis LeVert at 6.7 has been playing marvelously in the absence of Kyrie Irving. He's been starting. 39 or more fantasy points in his last 4 of 5 games, 32-plus minutes in his last 4 of 5. He leads the team in usage with a 30.5% usage rate over his last 5. So Karis LeVert been playing really good. Tobias Harris is another guy that's been playing that was playing really well before the break. 6.4K tonight. Usually one that kind of falls through the cracks, and just not a whole lot of people play Tobias. 41 or more fantasy points in his last 3 of 4. 21.3% usage rate over his last 5 in 3 games versus the Nets. 33.9 minutes, 25.5% usage rate. He's averaging 22 points a game, 7.3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, and 0.8 steals. So, pretty good numbers against Brooklyn so far this season. 3 games is a pretty good sample. Scoring quite a good amount. Rebounds are there. Needs a few more assists, but the blocks and steals are there too. Sorry guys, still getting over the runny nose and all that fun stuff that goes along with the Arkansas weather that changes every single day. So Tobias Harris definitely in play against the Nets. Like him quite a bit at the price of 6.4. It's pretty cheap. Harrison Barnes at 5K against Memphis at home. 32 or more fantasy points in his last 2 of 3 at home. In 2 games versus Memphis, he's averaging 36 minutes, 21 points, 2.5 rebounds, 4 assists. So if you're looking for a decent mid-price value there, a guy that has had good numbers against the team that they're playing tonight. Barnes has actually had good numbers against Memphis in 2 games. So keep that and do what you will with it. Jay Crowder for Miami at 5K, 24, 39, and 46 fantasy points over his last 3. He's playing 30 minutes a game. He scored at least 15 or more actual in those 3 and 6 total steals. Gets Atlanta in Atlanta tonight. So do what you will with that. I like Jay Crowder quite a bit as well. So going along, Daniel House at 4-6. Golden State alone the fourth most of that small forward spot over the last 10. 25 or more fantasy points in his last 3 of 5. Over 30 minutes in his last 3. Nice pace spot here, of course. Going to the power forward where there's literally not very much to look at. Giannis, 67 or more in his last 4 of 5. That's all I need to tell you. Just be wary and just understand that it's a very high total. I mean, a high spread, almost 14 points on the road here. Giannis could literally put up 60 and 3/4. We know he has that capability. John Collins at 8.7. In his last 3 at home, 61, 48, 44 fantasy points. In 2 games versus Miami so far this season, 34 minutes, 21 points per game, 7 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks. Decent numbers. Collins' price is up there, but he's had decent success against Miami. He's been playing really well at home lately, so don't mind Collins if you want to go there. Christian Wood for Detroit, 6.9. Again, remember the spread. Pace up spot here, of course, though, for them. 41 or more fantasy points in his last 3 or 4. 22.5% usage rate over his last 5. Christian Wood's been playing well. His price is not exactly up to where it probably should be. I think he should probably be at 7.6 or more. So I think you still take the savings on Christian Wood. They don't just have a whole lot of depth. They have Dumboya and they have Markieff. But Thon is literally, their only true center. So, other than Wood, of course. But Wood, of course, is playing the power forward spot. So, be interesting. Rob Cubb at 5.5. Golden State allowing the number 1 most fantasy points to that power forward spot over their last 10. 28 or more fantasy points in his last 6 of 7. He's played over 30 minutes in all but 1 game so far since joining the Rockets. Markieff Morris, as I talked about, could get some extended run here if this game gets out of hand. 21 minutes over his last 2 since returning from injury. 29 fantasy points in his last game. They just don't have any depth. So Markieff at 3.8 I think is a decent value. Jabari Parker is one you can just kind of look and monitor. I wanted to put him in here because he is returning. He is making his Kings debut tonight. He practiced in full. I don't know the minutes. I don't know how much he's going to play. The Kings do obviously need him. They're still, without Marvin Bagley. They're still without Rashawn Holmes. They traded off Dwayne Dedmon. Alex Len is not playing yet, so they do need Parker. So keep that one in mind. He's only 3.7. Going over to the center spot, Joel Embiid should absolutely smash Brooklyn at home here. Over his last 3 at home, he's put up 34, 65, and 43. He's put up a double-double in his last 4 of 5, 7 total blocks, 6 total steals over his last 5 games. And, of course, it is Brooklyn, who we know it's not exactly the greatest against the center spot. Bam Adebayo at 4.8. 7.8. Wouldn't we love to have him at 4.8? 7.8 is still cheap. It's a huge pace-up spot here for Miami. Atlanta is allowing the 4th most of that center spot over the last 10. Of course, they're starting Dwayne Dedmon or Damian Jones, whichever one. Either way, Bam should just really have a nice little advantage here. Over 40 fantasy points in his last 7 of 8 on the road. He's put up a double-double in his last 5 of 7 games. 5 or more assists in his last 8 of 10. 7 total blocks, 7 total steals in his last 5 games. So Bam has been playing absolutely well before the break, and I see that very, very well continuing in Atlanta tonight. Marquise Chris at 6.2. Houston allowing the 7th most of that center spot since they've been starting PJ Tucker at the center spot. Marquise Chris at 6.2 I think is a decent value. 43 or more in his last 2 of 3. Over 33 fantasy points in his last 3 straight. 9 or more rebounds over his last 3. 17 or more actual points. So good stuff here from Marquise Chris. That is that game, of course, with the highest total. So it's definitely a good look. DeAndre Jordan at 5.3. 29, 28, and 23 minutes over his last 3. Put up 40 in back-to-back road games there in those last 2 of 3 as well. DeAndre Jordan, definitely a good look. They're probably definitely going to need him tonight against Joel. So definitely could see some DeAndre Jordan playing in the 24 to 26 minute range. Dwayne Dedmon at 4.8. I mean, I get it. Atlanta they have to play him. They have nobody else to play. He's only 4.8. 28 or more minutes in all but 1 game so far since joining Atlanta again. 25 or more fantasy points in his last 3 straight. So decent look there on Dwayne Dedmon. And finally, Thon Maker, if he does get the start once again in Detroit versus Milwaukee. 27 or more minutes over his last 3 or 4, 20, 34, 26 fantasy points, 6 total blocks, 2 total steals over his last 3. So Thon's been playing pretty decent, and he's a cheapie. So that wraps up this 6-gamer for your Thursday edition of the Quick Bricks NBA DFS podcast. Enjoy your Thursday, and let's win tonight in some NBA.